Hey guys, welcome back to Rue Morgue TV. Executive Editor Andrea Subasati here, and I'd like to take the opportunity to officially invite you to our Rue Morgue Cinemacabre virtual movie screenings. We've partnered with Kino Marquee to do a screening on the 13th of every month, and how it works is you rent the movie through Kino Marquee, and that link is always in the Rue Morgue Cinemacabre Facebook group. You rent the movie, and then the night of the screening, you join us via Zoom, and we all get together and we have a chat about the movie, we come up with a drinking game, we do some trivia, we do some prizes, and then we text throughout the film. They're really fun. It's a really great way to interact with me and the rest of the Rue crew, and that's going down the 13th of every single month, and I hope you join us. Be sure you're following the Rue Morgue Cinemacabre official group on Facebook for all the updates, and I hope to see you.
Hi, I'm Nighttime Nicholas, and I specialize in diaphonization, and on this episode of Rue Morgue TV, I'm going to be talking about what diaphonization is, how it works, and why it's so cool. My house looks like it's haunted. It kind of looks like a haunted mansion, which is what I was going for. Lots of candle holders and jars with animals in them. I think it keeps people away, which is sometimes perfect. Diaphonization is a process that takes animal specimens and makes all the muscles and tissues see-through. So what you're allowed to observe is the skeleton in its entirety. The colors come from special dyes that focus on staining the skeleton and the cartilage and differentiate it so you can see the composition of the skeleton. In this guy, you can see the front of the ribs is all blue. That's a special dye that stains just cartilage, and then all throughout you can observe the skeleton. So the process requires the skin and organs to be removed, so what's left is the muscles and tissue underneath the skin. You make those muscles and tissues transparent just with a series of chemical washes. So the minimum process that I do is about 2 to 3 months. The larger that something is, the longer it takes. So some specimens I've worked on for 8 months. I have this 4.5-foot python that I was working on for about 1.5 years. What makes the process take so long is being able to flush out those chemicals. The thicker tissue takes a lot longer to make clear, so that way the skeleton is observable in those areas. The process uses a lot of dangerous chemicals, things like formaldehyde and pure acetic acid, and because of that there's a lot of protective equipment that is needed. Because of this, there's a lot of precaution that's taken to ensure that when they are finished, that they are safe to handle, and understanding of how those chemicals work and the danger that they have. I do my best to ensure that they're all safe to handle by the end. Generally, the specimens that you can process is anything with a spine. That limits it to mammals, fish, but it's still such a large variety that that can be processed. So things like seahorses, humans even, you can process with this special technique. I got into diaphonization from seeing it at the Royal Ontario Museum maybe about 15 years ago. We were on an art trip. The museum was about to close and they have a tiny selection, maybe about 8 pieces. I just sat there looking at this very tiny section, wondering, what am I looking at? 10 years later, I ended up coming across the protocols that explain the process, and it was only then that I made that connection between this visceral experience that I had and decided I kind of wanted to make a collection for myself. I learned how to skin and process animals from a taxidermy class that I had taken, and I was very worried about how I would be able to do it because at the time I felt I was quite squeamish, but the taxidermy class went over pretty well, and I was very surprised at how easy it was for someone who is quite squeamish to be able to overcome their fear. One of the first animals that I had worked on was actually a carcass from the taxidermy class that I had taken. Someone had brought a chipmunk that their dog had killed and they found in the yard, and by the time I was finished processing this chipmunk, I ended up seeing, tears in the tissues from where the dog had chomped down and breaks in the bones. Even though that these are quite sad things to observe, it was a really interesting specimen by the time it was finished. I make sure to utilize only animals that have died naturally for this process. So I started to contact zoos and museums and pet stores, breeders, and just was the weird guy and asked them if they might have had something dead in their freezer, and ended up developing relationships with these people, and we would exchange things. Like I would try to figure out why an animal might have died if it was a little bit obvious, and in exchange for that knowledge they would provide me with animal specimens, or I would process something for them in exchange. So I make sure to only use these types of animals. This is a rat snake which I had picked up from a friend that works at a pet store. This was his rat snake and it unfortunately had passed. I chose to process it in this way to ensure that it has a little bit of its personality from when it were alive. So I left the skin on the head so that way it's recognizable. I tried to create this sort of lighter bone stain so that way it's a little bit more attention grabbing, especially when it's on the mantle or wherever it is that it might be displayed in the future. Because I've become the person that people will call if they find a dead animal somewhere, I end up receiving some pretty interesting specimens from out in the wild. And I received this pigeon one time. It was very fresh. I had this preconceived notion about pigeons being dirty and gross, and there's street rats with wings. And when I started to work on it, I was surprised at how healthy this thing was, and it had a better diet than I do. As I'm working on this, I was thinking this would probably be a really nice bird to cook up, but I didn't do it. The pigeon smelled, I mean, it smelled really nice. It smelled like really nice meat. I didn't eat the street rat. The largest animal that I've processed is a pig, but I've been working on some larger animals. There's some commissions that I do as well. I've been working on someone's cat for about 1.5 years. That's so that way it turns out in the way that they have in mind, and we're all happy with the finished product. I would love to work on Sonic the Hedgehog. There's something called an echidna, which is super weird, and they're adorable. That and a platypus, it would be a pretty interesting finished piece. I would process a human, but it would probably just be for my own collection. I mean, I don't have reservations on working with human parts. I love the idea of mixing science and art, and this process really displays the beauty that is in the natural world, and to be able to create these kinds of pieces and make them available for people who don't have access to the museum or laboratories is really incredible for me, and it brings together these different interests that people have. So I have people that are in the academic world that collect these, and people who love horror collect these as well. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Rue Morgue TV. I am Nighttime Nicholas. If you have any questions, or you want to reach out, or you're interested in any of the specimens, or if you have a pet or an ex that you want to talk to me about, you can find me at Nighttime Nicholas on my social media or my website. And thanks so much.